Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Come Over for Dinner. I'm so glad you're joining me today. Today I have a very special guest. She is my sister. Her name is Esther Smallwood, and she lives in Arkansas with her family. Welcome, Esther.
Hey, thank you for having me.
She is the only sister still left in the South. She is holding strong.
It's true.
But I have had the chance this summer to come and visit with her and have talked her into doing a podcast episode. And I am so excited because I've been wanting to do this for a long time. So Esther, tell us just a little bit about yourself before we get started.
Well, I do enjoy cooking. I think over the years, there's been times when it's felt more like a chore or more enjoyable. So your podcast definitely helps it not feel like a chore. It makes it more fun. And I like looking on your website because even if I haven't been able to listen to that episode, there's always good recipes. So I like that because sometimes I get tired of my same old recipes and need some new inspiration. So
yes,
that's neat. So grew up in Arkansas, still live in Arkansas, and have 4 kiddos. And yeah, we have a great time here.
Yep. 2 of them are grown and out of the house, or at least starting to step that way. One has gone to college. He's home for the summer. 2 more are still homeschooling. And so you still have four that you feed on a regular basis, sometimes more. So tell us a little bit more about some of the favorite things you might serve, like a favorite menu you would serve to your family, but also when you host another family.
Okay, so during the summer, I like to grill, and that is a way I found that my kids will eat lots more veggies. So squash, my kids do not care for, but if you grill it, all of a sudden it's delicious. Mushrooms are another food item like that. So I do like to grill more in the summer. So the menu I have is raspberry barbecue chicken. So you make your own barbecue sauce. Well, you start with store-bought. We like Stubbs, and you mix raspberry jam in there and some vinegar and Dijon. And so you make this really good sauce and you can grill chicken. If you don't have a grill, I also have an option where you can put it in the slow cooker. The ingredients are slightly different, but pretty similar. So you can do it that way. And that way it's already all done. When the guests arrive, you just shred it with a couple of forks and it's done. And my best friend gave me her mom's recipe for burger buns. So we make our own homemade burger buns, and that's really good.
Girl, that would set it over the top.
Yeah, they're really delicious.
Homemade buns?
Yeah, we really like those. So if I have time, if you don't, you can just buy store-bought. And with this, I like to serve my mom's coleslaw. And it's just a classic cabbage, onion, sugar, vinegar, coleslaw. If you have other things from the garden, it's really good to add that into, if you have shredded carrots or, chopped cucumber or something like that you want to add. That always makes it fun. I also like to serve baked beans with this, and they're very forgiving because you don't have to serve them piping hot. If you do them ahead of time a little bit, it's okay. The recipe I'm going to share or when we attended church in this little town in Arkansas called Washington, there was a lady that always brought these beans, and I think her name was Lugene. And they were the best. So I'll share those. They're potluck beans. They're really good.
Is that the title of the recipe, potluck beans?
They should be. When I wrote it down, she told me the recipe, but it was kind of during the potluck. So I just wrote really delicious beans. That was the title. I don't know what she called them. And then Bess has a delicious recipe for twice baked potatoes, and those go like hotcakes at any get together. So I like to make those too.
And those can be made ahead of time and completely and reheated. I've even frozen them and pulled them out.
Yes.
Which I think the only way you can freeze potatoes is if they're already mixed with fats.
Yes.
At least from what I understand. Because I did try in my lifetime to take garden potatoes and freeze them. I think I boiled them, mashed them, and put them in freezer bags thinking I was going to be able to pull out mashed potatoes and dress them up instantly, anytime for the family. And I was so disappointed because when I pulled those potatoes out, they were mealy and really watery and just really gross. And I, of course, had to figure out what I'd done wrong. So in reading about it, it said that you can freeze potatoes, but they have to be mixed with like your butter and your sour cream and your cream cheese or whatever it is that you're doing. The fat stabilize the potatoes somehow and keep them from breaking down.
Yeah, this recipe has plenty of butter and cheese, so maybe that's what helps them. Because they do freeze beautifully.
That allows you to freeze your twice baked potatoes.
Yes, yeah. And I think Pioneer Woman said don't freeze green onion. I don't think I've tried that, but I think she said it can have a weird flavor. But this recipe doesn't have green onion, so
yeah, you could always sprinkle them on the top later if you wanted to have them, but I wouldn't freeze them in the mixture.
Be a pretty garnish. Yeah. For dessert, I have my very favorite chocolate mint brownie. This is something our mom made whenever we were growing up, and it is delicious. I really like dark chocolate though, so you might want to edit the recipe for your taste, but basically it's not a dry brownie. It's a very good gooey brownie.
Veggie brownie.
Yes. And it has a mint frosting on top and then melted unsweetened chocolate over the top of everything, which I love. But if you don't like it that way, you can always do semi-sweet or bittersweet. And I love this brownie because you can dress it up if you want to. You could drizzle your plate with chocolate and, cut it in a diamond pattern and make it look really pretty. Or you can spoon it out of the pan. Not that I've ever done that and just eat it that way. But it's a really good one.
I'm just wondering if she's made these for me today. Since I've driven to
Arkansas. Could. They're really easy.
Am I considered company? I don't know.
Definitely. I'll just put you to work. You can make the frosting.
I can make the brownies.
Yeah. We'll divvy it up, divide and conquer.
So you mentioned a few of the time savers. We've talked about some of the stuff you can put in the crock pot early, or you can freeze some of the items or pre-make it. Is there any other shortcuts or time savers with this that you would recommend?
I think if you have the time, doing things in advance as much as you can, it makes it easier. If you don't have the time, I don't think it should stop you from having people over. It's not as if you have to have 3 days to prepare. But if you break it up like that, it can be easier because you could clean one day, you could prep one day, or go to the grocery store and prep and then kind of cook, on the day they're coming over, and it makes it easier. You don't have to have all that time if you don't want it, but it can definitely make it easier on yourself. And I do remember when we were younger, I thought my mom was so weird for setting the table the night before or the morning, like after breakfast or something when they're coming for evening. Why are you doing that? But now I do it too. And now I know why, because it's just out of the way. You don't have to think about it. And you don't have to, at the last minute, wonder, where are all the spoons? You've already done that. You've already figured out, where your napkins are and all that. So that I do beforehand. It does make it easier if you can.
Yes, that's a good tip. What is your best prep tip for having people over? So you've decided to have whoever over, family, people from church, work people. When you say, okay, this is happening, how do you prep? Do you find different cooking inspiration from different places? Do you clean in a certain way? Do you have any shopping tips? What you got?
I usually start trying to come up with a menu. I'll look through some of my cookbooks. I really like the Ultimate Southern Living Cookbook. We grew up with that. That's kind of how I learned to cook. And it's great because it has things as simple as making iced tea to something as complicated as, rack of lamb with cherry sauce. So it has a lot. So that one I like. I also have started cooking more out of Julia Child's The Art of French Cooking, Bon Appetit Gourmet, Half-Baked Harvest. I know I've heard that on this podcast mentioned. That one a lot of people like.
She's a favorite.
Yeah. Pioneer Woman. Her cookbook, my older son kind of learned how to cook through her first cookbook. I think all the pictures helped because there's a picture for every step. So that's a good resource,
And
especially
you
if
can
you're
find
kind
them
of
from
new.
the library.
Yes.
If you don't want to commit to paying $15 or $20 for a cookbook, of course you can find them used too. She's had so many for so long.
Yeah.
That there are older ones that are a lot cheaper. But if you can check them out from the library, most everything she's mentioned, you can order through the library or through your library system, because maybe all libraries have some connection to other libraries in their state. And even if they don't have it, they can get it from another fellow library and have it for you within a few days, which I like that because then you can kind of peruse it and see if it's one you really want.
Yes. And I found cookbooks on eBay because that's something people will buy, but not really, they'll decide they're not going to use it, and you can get them pretty cheap that way. So yeah, I start with that, and I'll kind of make a game plan. And I do like to stretch it out over a couple of days, because that just makes it easier with the shopping. And you could do your online pickup order if you wanted to. And sometimes you need to do that a day in advance anyway. So that makes it nice. And sometimes I'll kind of prep my kids, like get them to help me. If you're having a family over that tends to stay really late, then you can
hang a banner that says, what does it say?
Please leave by 9.
I have seen those banners, or the old saying, you can stay. What is it? You can stay, but you can't stay here.
Yeah, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
Yeah.
That was like a 90s song, I think.
Yeah. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Hang that up right as you're, when the clock strikes 8 or the clock strikes 9. Kids, could you put the banner up?
I have told my adult kids, like, okay, if they're still here by 10:30 or 11, go ahead and start clearing the table, and let's get the dishwasher going. You don't want to break up. I think when you clear the table, because our table's big and that's kind of where we sit and talk. So once you start bustling around and cleaning stuff up and taking stuff away, people feel like, oh, I have to move, or I guess this is over, and they start to leave. So I try not to do that for a while, because people can just sit and talk, and you want to have plenty of water on the table, because, they'll just sit and talk and, need more to drink, or, your bottle of wine or whatever beverages you have. But there is a time when you want to segue. Another thing that we usually try to have is dinner candles. I find that kids really like that too. Our youngest loves to light them and put them out. But again, we try to leave them lit while everybody's still talking, even if we're done eating, because it's like once the candles go out, it's like it's over. And I don't know if that's just the Anglican church service coming out there, it's like the end. My husband usually remembers to offer coffee. That's something I always forget, but there's people that like to have coffee with their dessert or when they're sitting around talking.
So what is your best advice for showing warm hospitality to those coming into your home? You've already touched on that with not clearing the table and making sure that they still feel welcome to visit and not hurried away. What else would you suggest?
Okay, so I think of a Julia Child quote. She said, so she had made this lunch. I think she'd made omelets for her and her friend, and she tells a story in her book. I think it's My Life in France, maybe. She says, we ate lunch with painful politeness and avoided discussing its taste. I made sure not to apologize for it. This was a rule of mine. I don't believe in twisting yourself in knots of excuses and explanations over the food you make. Usually one's cooking is better than one thinks it is. And if the food is vile, then the cook must simply grit her teeth and bear it with a smile and learn from her mistakes. And I love that, because I would be the type of person that would apologize, I overcooked this, or, oh, I'm so sorry, my home is messy, and that type of thing. And I think what that does is it just makes your guests feel awkward, because then they have to say, oh, no, it's not, and you're really not focusing on your guest. You're focusing on yourself. You're not meaning to, but it's just kind of awkward. So don't apologize.
You're drawing their attention to all the negative things which they would never see if you hadn't brought their attention to that.
Yes.
They don't know that the chicken's a little drier than it normally is, or whatever.
And even if it's vile.
Don't apologize.
Simply grit your teeth.
Don't make it more vile by pointing out how vile it is.
That's right. I mean, it probably won't keep them from coming back. I mean,
Right. Right. Exactly. And most things aren't vile where you have to replace it with emergency takeout pizza. Most things you just,
That's
as a
always an
cook,
option, though.
It is an option, and it has happened to people.
Yes.
But as a cook, especially if you cook a lot and you recognize, oh, I let this overcook just a little bit, or whatever the small minor details and the mistakes are, if you point them all out, it does make your dinner come down a notch.
Yep.
And they probably would have thought it was wonderful, honestly.
Yeah, or maybe not thought that much about it. I mean, I do think when you have people over that hopefully the food is good, but often what we're doing when we get together is we just want to get together. You know, we want to hang out and fellowship and talk, and good food helps, but it doesn't have to be just out of this world every time.
Mm-hmm. Right. They're coming for fellowship with you. They're not coming because they think you're a 5-star chef. And they're going to be really fussy and banging their silverware on the table, demanding things. They're just happy.
It hasn't happened yet.
Yeah,
I mean,
you know,
you
there
never
might
know.
be some internal struggles with people, but so far it hasn't come out yet that they're demanding, why is the chicken dry?
That's right.
Send it back to the kitchen. Oh, dear. So, moving on to your must-have kitchen item.
My must-have kitchen item would have to be an audiobook because I spend a lot of time in the kitchen. I do lots of dishes, lots of cleaning, especially whenever you're cooking to have people over. You're just going to be in there a long time. So I love to have an audiobook. Sometimes I'll listen to it with earbuds, or I'll just have it playing where kids can listen to. But there's lots that you can get through your library that are free if your library provides that. Mine has Hoopla and Libby, so I know those are options.
I think most do, because so much of modern age is not technology. A lot of the modern things out there are digital. And so you can get books on your phone, similar to Kindle, which is you have to pay for through Amazon.
You can pay for Audible. I know there's Scribed you can pay for. I don't pay for anything.
Yes, because
you can find some books on YouTube, like Agatha
libraries
Christie.
subscribe to databases. Yes, that's true. We'll talk about YouTube as well. Libraries subscribe to databases where you can have books to read on your phone, or like you mentioned, audiobooks. And the difference between a free subscription and a paid subscription, usually the paid subscription, whatever you type in, you can download and order, you can pay for. So then maybe the library is more limited. But I know where I live now, they actually connect with libraries all over the state. And so you can search, I think it's like 12 different databases. And they're working to compile them all into one. And so in one database, you can search, like, let's just say Agatha Christie, and see everything that every library in the state offers. And it could be a book you read or an audiobook that you listen to while you're doing the dishes.
Yep. And LibriVox has, if it's out of copyright, they have a lot of classics, and there's some really good readers. Mill Nicholson does a lot of Dickens. Karen Savage is another good reader. She may do some Jane Austen. I can't remember, but she's a really good reader too. And that's completely free. So that's a good resource.
And then you mentioned YouTube. What do you find on YouTube?
I don't do a lot of books from YouTube, but I know you can find Agatha Christie because I've looked that one up. I usually do LibriVox or Hoopla or Libby. If you want something funny, you could look up P.G. Wodehouse or 3 Men in a Boat. Again, they have a lot of classics. You could look up, this menu is a little bit Southern, and I'm from Arkansas, so you could listen to My Southern Journey by Rick Bragg, or you could listen to Wendell Berry. If your kids are in the room and they want something fun, there's Hank the Cowdog. other books like Wolves of Willoughby Chase or Moon Over Manifest or Brian Jakes. There's just lots and lots of fun books out there. I really like the Golden Age detective mysteries. So we mentioned Agatha Christie, but there's also Dorothy Sayers and Marjorie Allingham and Niall Marsh. And of course, the father of them all, Wilkie Collins. So it's just fun because it's something to think about and engage in while you're creating your delicious menu.
So do you turn an audiobook on out loud for the whole family to listen to, or do you put like earbuds in? How do you typically do it? Or does it just vary depending on who's present?
Yeah, it just varies. I'll ask my kids, do you want to listen to this? Or if it's something I think they'll like, put it on where everybody can hear. Now that my kids are older, sometimes they're reading their own book or listening to their own book. So I do have earbuds, but I don't turn it up so loud I can't hear them if they need me. So that's usually how I do it, is with earbuds, because now that they're older, they may have something going on. But we do like to listen to books together, and that's fun because then you have something to talk about. We recently listened to All Creatures Great and Small, and the narrator for that one was really good, and that was fun to talk about what went on in the book. So that was really fun.
If I got involved in a story like that, I almost wouldn't want the guests to walk in the door.
Sometimes it is hard. You get near the end and you have to stop, and you're like, could you just wait an hour?
Especially if it's like a mystery, then it's a cliffhanger at the end of the chapter.
Yeah.
That would be tough. I have a confession. I get severe story grip. It's a problem.
Happens to the best of us.
I really have to weigh whether I can start reading a book or not. I mean, if it's just a really long tome, then maybe I'm safe. You know, I could fall asleep.
You could listen to something boring like a sermon. I'm kidding.
How dare you? Sermon. Actually, that is a good point, though. Seeing as how this is a Christian podcast, you could turn on a sermon for the family.
It's true. Yes, you could. Make everybody listen.
Or a good podcast.
Yep, there's lots of options. Or you could do an old favorite. That way, if you miss part of it or you don't hear it or whatever, it's okay. You could just do a classic that you've read several times. It's still fun. I like it better than just nothing at all. I like nothing at all sometimes too, but
yes. Well, I do jest because I have had that thought. If you like, say a book that is just fascinating and you really don't want to turn it off, well, it makes the time go by pretty fast. But I've also had that thought with exercise. Like,
yes,
if I have a book that I love, I can only turn it on
if you're moving.
If I'm moving.
Yep.
And it has to be, the recommended heart rate or whatever. A brisk walk or a treadmill or something. Yes. I have to do something. Yes. I don't know. No one asked me about this because I haven't started it yet, but it's a goal. It's not a New Year's resolution because this will be coming out in August and I haven't done it. But I have had that thought recently, like I need to get a book like that I really, really want to read. And this is my inspiration because I will want to know what is going to happen next. So
no, it does help. That's helped me on long car trips too, where you're actually looking forward to it because you'll get to listen to your book.
Yes, that reminds me, a book that I really loved with the kids was God's Smuggler.
Yes.
We listened to it on audio driving to Florida. We took the kids on a family vacation right before everybody started flying the nest. And it was so well written, and it was just so many great stories. And I know we got it I probably ordered it through Amazon. I'm not sure. I may have gotten it through the library. It's a common one, so I'm sure you could. But yes, I do remember that, just the miles flying by as the chapters went by.
Yeah, and it's fun because you have that memory together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so do you have any other tips on like any other genres that you read? Or, I mean, you mentioned a lot of readers and books, so I may have had you cover all of that.
Yes, I think my fun books tend to be the detective mystery. I mentioned the Golden Age detectives. I also like Rex Stout, his Nero Wolfe books. are good. Trent's Last Case by E.C. Bentley is good. He was friends with G.K. Chesterton.
You sent me that book as being one of the first
I think it was, maybe, yeah.
mysteries written.
Maybe so. I can't remember.
And it kind of started that genre. I could be getting the history wrong.
Yeah, I don't remember. I know Wilkie Collins sort of did with his The Woman in White and The Moonstone.
Which are both excellent. If you have not read those.
I got through painting a gigantic room with The Woman in White, and that was the type of thing where you're not going to stop. You're like, keep going, because you want to keep listening.
Way back when, before I was married, my friend Becca was the one that introduced me to Wilkie Collins. And I think she asked, we were talking about, well, what to read and, suggesting books to each other. And she asked if I'd ever read The Woman in White. Moonraker's Bride, did you mention that one?
No, I forget who that's by, but that's
are they
captivating too.
That's not the same author.
No, it's a different author.
It is. I'll have to look it up. But anyway, Moonraker's Bride, she mentioned Woman in White, Wilkie Collins. Anyway, I read both of them and just loved them both. They were so good. So, yes, very fun, very captivating reads. If you haven't read them, the Woman in White book is very thick, but you'll fly through it.
Yes.
But audio, you would have lots of material for a while.
Yeah, and for nonfiction, I recently read or listened to The Medieval Mind of C.S. Lewis, and that's by Jason Baxter, and that is excellent. It's very good, and he's a new author, which, often new authors, it's like, I can't read you till you're dead. I guess nonfiction is a little different. And then The End of Christendom by Malcolm Muggeridge is nonfiction. That was also excellent.
Do you feel like you can follow nonfiction as well on audio? Do you feel like you can kind of keep up?
It's not the same as reading it. If you can sit down and read, I'll probably take in more. But it's better than nothing.
For
I
sure.
can usually follow it. You can always go back if you need to read. If you're like, okay, I missed that. I was distracted and I wasn't tuning in. You can always go back. I think it's worth it.
Oh, for sure. I do that with listening to podcasts or sermons or something like that. If I realize all of a sudden I'm daydreaming, then I'll pause and
like, who is this
rewind.
character? Yeah, where'd they come from? Yeah, a couple of others that are classics that are really engaging that I like are Far from the Madding Crowd. And there's a reader on LibriVox that does that one. And I don't know how to say his name, but it's Tadhg. And he does a really good job. And The Painted Veil by W. Somerset Maugham is good as well. Those are fun. So, yeah, once you start picking out some favorites, you'll remember others that you want to listen to.
Well, you'll start a list, and that's kind of fun.
But you'll never reach the end of.
You'll never reach the end of. And that's kind of fun because you never reach the end of cooking and cleaning. And a lot of those tasks, once you've done them for over and over and over for years, a lot of those tasks really are rote. I mean, we can always learn something new in the kitchen or a new technique or a new recipe where you do need a lot more attention. Like if I was learning how to make, homemade pasta, for instance, I probably wouldn't turn on an audiobook. But if I'm cleaning the bathroom in preparation for a company coming over, or if I'm making mashed potatoes or, just something I've done so many times, it would make the time fly by to be able to turn on something like that.
Sometimes you do really have to concentrate, but you just pause it.
Pause it and then keep going once your task is complete. From all of your years of hosting people and welcoming people into your home, do you have a story that you would like to share with us?
Oh, a story. I don't know. I can't think of one of people when people came over. I do have one that's sort of a cooking story, I guess, that my kids really like. So my son that's an adult now, he always liked to snitch things in the kitchen that you were making. He always liked to come by and, sample. He liked to sample.
Make sure it's edible before the guests arrive.
Yeah, so I was going through this phase where I was making homemade body products like lotion and lip gloss and all this sort of thing. And he came through and I had made this body lotion or body butter or whatever it was. And you whip it up in the KitchenAid and it looks just like buttercream icing. I mean, the spitting image. But the stuff had lavender oil and different things in it. So he came by thinking nobody was watching and he got a big old bite of that.
And, a spoonful?
Oh, yeah. 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 Another time we had a puppy and we thought it'd be fun to make, some little homemade dog biscuits. So my younger two helped me, and it was things humans can have, like pumpkin and peanut butter and oats and that sort of thing. We mixed them up and they were cooling, but they looked like cookies. And so he popped a couple of those in his mouth. We thought this would slow him down, but he's still a sampler. My daughter started counting the cookies she makes just to see, how many
how many disappear
how
when
many
he walks
disappear.
by.
Yeah. But yeah, they like to pick on him.
How
he
many
eats dog biscuits and lotion.
How many dog biscuits disappeared?
I think he popped a couple in his mouth before he realized you never really want to stop that because you get to see the face that he makes. It's pretty fun.
It's priceless.
Yeah, it's worth it.
It's worth it. Sorry, son, you ate dog biscuits. Hey, it's just oats and whatever else, pumpkin.
Definitely not what he was expecting.
Maybe a bit crunchy.
Yes.
Crunchy,
Yeah.
like, Mom, you really overcooked these cookies. I one time made a homemade recipe of dog biscuits and was very proud of myself and put them under the Christmas tree for our two dogs, and they wouldn't eat them.
Oh, no. Well, my son might have. We could have asked him,
I should have just, re-gifted.
Merry Christmas, honey.
Merry Christmas, son. They're in the shape of dog bones, but
hearts. Yes.
I recut them into cookie pieces. I don't know what it was. It was kind of the similar thing. I think they were, Ina Garten or somebody had put out, this recipe for dog biscuits.
All they really wanted was bacon, but...
Right. It had peanut butter, not bacon.
Yeah.
Maybe eventually. I think one of the dogs never touched them. The other dog maybe eventually ate them all. After they were... Maybe I dripped some bacon grease on them to convince them. It was the funniest thing. Is there anything you'd like to add? Did I miss anything?
I will add, I do try to serve a fun drink if I have time. So with this menu, I would probably serve beer or maybe a Pinot Noir. It's something that's like earthy, smoky, especially if you're doing the grill. So I like to serve wine. That's kind of nice. It's also fun to have a drink for the kids, like lemonade or sparkling juice or something like that. If you don't, no big deal. We've had plenty of meals with just water, but it kind of makes it special, takes it up a notch. And what else? Oh, I have a couple of books that I like whenever you're thinking about getting inspired. I really like The Supper of the Lamb by Robert Capone. And I also like An Everlasting Meal by Tamar Adler. Both of those are really good and do have recipes. They're not cookbooks per se, but they are inspiring. So I like both of those. The Supper of the Lamb is just so quotable. He says things that I just really love. Let's see. I have one. Hang on. He says,
tell us some of your favorites.
Okay.
The Supper of the Lamb, he talks about food and the blessing that it is. And how would you describe the Supper of the Lamb?
Yeah, I think it's been a while since I read it, but I think he has a chapter on water, a chapter on bread, but he brings in theology and life and all that, living, just all that into the book as well. So I always liked this one. He says, "A woman with a cleaver in mid-swing is no mere woman. A man who has seen a woman only as a gentle arranger of flowers has not seen all that women have to offer. Unsuspecting majesties await him."
When he sees her with the cleaver.
Yes. And I like that he says peeling and scrubbing is merely high church. I love that because I'm not always, I do try to, I try to get the dirt off, but you don't always have time to peel everything.
That's funny. It's high church if you prep your vegetables in such a way.
Yes.
And then An Everlasting Meal, she talks about using all the parts of the food, or what is her main takeaway from that book?
It's been a while since I've read that one too. From what I remember, you use things from previous meals to help you start new meals. What else? I think using things that maybe you would normally throw away, she helps you find a use for it. I like it because it kind of teaches you how to cook without a cookbook. It's just kind of basic outline. So you could take what you gain from her book and just apply it across the board. It's not as if it would only apply to this one recipe or this one way of cooking.
Right. You're taking the food you have and learning how to use it as if you didn't have a shelf of cookbooks.
Right. Which is great too, because, a lot of times you want to use what's in your garden, or there's some lovely produce at the farmer's market or whatever. And you're thinking, okay, how do I, well, she kind of helps how to approach something like that might be new or different, and you know what to do with it.
I have seen an Everlasting Meal cookbook that came out this year.
Oh, nice.
I don't have reviews on it yet, though.
Yeah,
I don't know of anybody that's definitely something I need to look and see if the library can get in stock so I can look at it. So
she does have recipes, and they're good. I've made a few. So
this may just expand on that. I'm not sure. I really don't know, but I know a lot of people were excited about it when we
that would be
it.
Nice, because she had some recipes mixed in with the text. Like as she's writing the book, and you think, how do I underline this, or how do I make this into a normal style recipe? So that
or something you want to go back to and actually use multiple times if you don't have it memorized.
I don't normally use pen in my book. Usually it's pencil, but in that one I did use pen, to kind of show like, okay, here's the recipe.
Here's the recipe that I can follow and glance at really quickly.
Yeah.
Well, if you do obtain the cookbook, you'll have to give us your review on here later.
I will. I sure will. I'm sure it'll be great.
Read the book. You can kind of tie it in and tell us your thoughts. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. All of these tips have been fabulous, and I cannot wait to go back and re-listen to all of these book titles that I now need to add to my ever-growing list that I will never accomplish. All of them.
Thanks for having me. It was fun, but I do need to get back to my audiobook. So.
Oh, well, I'm glad you paused it for me. And I hope everyone has been able to keep our voices separate, because I'm kind of guessing we sound similar, both having grown up in the South. I do have a twin sister as well, and another sister, a younger sister. And people often say that they hear one of us, and then they look and think it's the person they know, and it's not.
Yes.
I had someone introduce themselves to me recently that said, now, do you know Lydia, who's our youngest sister? And I said, yeah, she's my sister. Oh, well, that makes a lot of sense.
No
Y'all
wonder.
sound the same. I heard you from across the parking lot.
Oh, no.
And a funny story with Esther is when I lived in Arkansas, we still were both in Texarkana, Arkansas. And I went through our little credit union drive-through.
This worked out well for me.
Yes, this worked out really well for Esther. I went through our credit union drive-through, and they made it a point to know you by name and greet you. And they probably had some kind of cheat sheet. They may have had a picture on the computer. I don't know. I went to make a deposit, and we're chit-chatting, and, everybody's very friendly in the South. Who knows what we said to each other. And, well, you have a nice day. And she sends back my deposit slip, and I don't know how I happened to glance at it, because most of the time I probably just junk it in the seat next to me, and it said Esther Smallwood.
I got a nice little bonus.
Who is my sister? He's doing the podcast with me. So I had to tell the bank teller, that's my sister. Do you mind moving the money to my account
I don't
now?
like her that much. I need my money back.
She was probably horrified. Anyway, funny story. All right. Until next time. Bye for now. Hello, friends. I'm so excited to announce my new Patreon page. Here you'll find bonus content like a never before released podcast episode and Esther's detailed audiobook list. She adds to the books she mentioned today and organizes her suggestions into categories such as humor, classics, nonfiction, kids, food, and more. Come support this show by joining this newly launched Patreon community for exclusive benefits beyond the podcast that will inspire you to confidently say, "Come over for dinner."